The Buffalo Bills avoided losing more than they won that football game. No turnovers and one penalty. Smart, adult-focused football. They've always been gifted, but a little loose, never quite disciplined, felt kind of reactionary. Not this team from the opening drive. Ran the ball. Not heavily reliant on Josh Allen. It was clinical. It was effective. Much more than it was impressive. I mean, Josh Allen only had 147 yards, total yards. Fewest of his career in a playoff game yet. I've never been more impressed. This is what the Kansas City Chiefs did when they moved off Tyreek Hill. They went from a fireworks show to a more effective football team. And that's what I saw. Responsible football. One penalty. Jimmy Johnson's been saying this for years. You will lose more playoff football games than you'll win. Josh Allen sacked one time. He had 4 attempts. This is the strongest arm guy in the league. Josh Allen had only 4 attempts over 10 yards. Now, the Ravens were bigger and flashier. They averaged 7.3 yards a play. It was big Derrick Henry run, big pass by Lamar Jackson. They looked like Buffalo generally looks. But they had an ugly pick. They had a couple of fumbles. They had a drop 2-point conversion. Baltimore looked like Buffalo for years. Mark Andrews, great player and great tight end, picked a bad day to have the worst game of his career. Lamar Jackson, I'll defend him. He played well enough to win. In fact, the Ravens never punted. I mean, think about that. You get Lamar Jackson's going to be MVP potentially. They never punted. They only got stopped when they stopped themselves, and that was the problem. They did, and Buffalo didn't. They had 13 big plays. Bills had 4. I watched that game, and I thought, meet the Buffalo Bills. They are the new Kansas City Chiefs with a more dynamic offense. The Bills finally, and we've been saying this all year, this is the best supporting cast Josh has had. Maybe the worst defense, but they're finally comfortable being effective. And by their standards, let's be truthful here, kind of boring by their standards, not most teams. So the Ravens kept pressing and making big plays, and it worked to a large degree. But in my lifetime, and even recent memory, the San Antonio Spurs with Duncan, the Bama dynasty with Saban, the New England Patriots. This dynasty in Kansas City really started when Tyreek Hill left. The Bills have always had a Ferrari at quarterback. But you know what gets old? Speeding tickets. And vanilla remains the most popular ice cream. So congratulations to the Buffalo Bills. Mature, focused, doubted on defense, effective, 1 sack, 1 penalty in the biggest game of the year, the biggest game ever for Josh Allen. He is back now to facing the vaunted Kansas City Chiefs. I said it last week and the week before. I think Buffalo wins the Super Bowl, and it's this pivot from speeding tickets in the Ferrari to just letting all the other kids fly by you. Don't beat yourself. Here's Josh Allen after.
All year, this team has heard, we got no talent, we're too small, we can't stop the run, we're not good enough to compete. We've just put our head down and worked hard. I'm so proud of our defense, I'm so proud of our offense and special teams. What a complete win. Obviously, on the offensive side of the ball, we wish we scored a little more, so we didn't have to take it down to the fourth quarter like that. But that's a really good team. Credit to them as well.
And it should be noted, you could tell this was game plan. The opening drive for the Buffalo Bills. Run, short passes. This was their game plan. Let's not beat ourselves. We don't have to be the flashiest. We've done that thing. It doesn't get us to where we want to go. I really think championship teams pivot. Remember, Tyreek Hill leaves. The Chiefs, less flashy, more effective. Stephon Diggs, some drama, leaves. And they immediately figure out we're not about one wideout. We're about a collective. And if we don't beat ourselves, nobody else is going to beat us either. That's Super Bowl winning football. run it, defend it, no penalties, no turnovers. Every team last couple of weekends that's won in the playoffs has had 0 turnovers. Took Buffalo a while to figure it out, but man, did they. Now let's go to the Eagles and the Rams. First of all, the fact that the Rams kept it close, tip of the cap to those guys, because I really do believe they need about 4 to 5 more players to beat a team like Philadelphia. But the Eagles have 2 stars, and they're the best players in the NFL at their position. One is in his prime, Saquon Barkley, and one's a kid, Jalen Carter. And, I may have my reservations about Philadelphia, but their great players deliver when it matters. As dysfunctional as they can seem, no turnovers, only 3 penalties. And I've always rooted for great players to land in great organizations. Shohei Ohtani needed to be a Dodger, not an Angel. LeBron needed to be with Pat Riley, not the Cleveland Cavaliers. And Saquon Barkley deserved better than the New York Giants, who have increasingly over the last decade been highly dysfunctional. There is a short list on the greatest running backs I've ever seen. Walter Payton's the best ever. Barry Sanders way up there. But Saquon Barkley is on that short list as well. And day one of his career, even at Penn State when they had weak offensive lines and the Giants had horrible offensive lines, he's never been one to point fingers. He has been total class, understated, just does his job. And when hardworking people get the opportunity to work with great people, magic happens. And I've always been, I tell my kids this, you don't really deserve stuff, you earn stuff. But I do feel in his case, he sort of deserved a great offensive line. And then he's got Jalen Carter slamming the door shut. Carter has a chance to be Reggie White and Aaron Donald here, like unblockable. And the NFL is so quarterback-centric that it is fascinating to watch the Eagles have 65 net passing yards, the fewest in 10 years for a winning playoff team. I mean, A.J. Brown could have read 2 books. This is, it's a Saquon Barkley team. And, the other thing I think about is here's a guy that was not on this team a year ago. And this is a team with alphas, best offensive line arguably in football, great defensive line. A.J. Brown, there are stars and alpha, even the coach, all over the locker room. And this quiet kid walks in and becomes the alpha of the alphas. It's somewhat ironic and beautiful that in a loud city with a loud coach and loud fans and at times a loud organization, it's the quiet, classy kid who's taken over the team. He and the remarkable Jalen Carter. And we don't talk a lot about interior defensive linemen, but the Rams had a shot on a short week in the snow after that Puka Nacua catch down the sidelines. They had a chance to win this game. I'm sitting there on my couch thinking, timeout. The Eagles have the better roster. They're at home. They're better suited for snowy weather. Are the Rams going to pull it out? And Saquon did it on offense, and Jalen Carter sealed it on defense. Here's Nick Sirianni.
Jalen Carter is a special player, and he's just done so many of the right things to continue to make himself a special player. For him to rush the passer the way that he did, and our group rush the way that we did in moments of where the footing wasn't great, that to me, that was a championship effort by the defense. He's so talented. But this league, there's a lot of guys that are talented, and it takes more than talent to reach your potential, and he's continuing to rise, and that speaks a lot to Jalen Carter.
This Eagles football team feels like it's led by Jalen Carter, Saquon Barkley, and the general manager. But what I do like about it as well is Jalen Hurts is okay with it. Jalen Hurts is about winning. That's all he cares about. You don't get a lot of ego. So it sort of all works. As dysfunctional as it often feels, it just sort of all works for Philadelphia. So had a 3-0 weekend. Feel good next weekend. I do think Buffalo is the better team. Now, can they win at Arrowhead? After watching them this weekend, I think what you're going to get is the two best football teams I've seen in this league are both in the AFC. And for a while this year in September, October, I thought Detroit was it. They're not. We'll address that after the break. And Philadelphia just seems like they let teams they're clearly better than stay in the game. Be honest about this. When Stafford completes that ball down the sideline to Puka Nacua, you were sitting there thinking, a LA team on a short week without the personnel to match Philly is going to steal this game. I sat there and thought, everything I was going to say about this game is going to be turned on its head. And then Jalen Carter, back-to-back, ends it.
Yeah, Eagles have not been great in either playoff game, Colin. They did not look particularly sharp against the Packers.
This is who they are.
Maybe you're right. I don't know. I mean, are they going to cough up the football 5 times like the Lions did and give Washington the victory? I don't see that happening. Do you?
No, I mean, they should be favored over Washington.
They are.
But I remember a New York Giants team that was good in the regular season like Washington, and they went on the road with Eli Manning, and they played with house money, and there wasn't a lot of pressure. Now, that Giants team had very good defensive personnel up front. It wasn't just Eli Manning. And I just don't think Washington has the personnel. If Washington got to the Super Bowl, this is not a shot at anybody because they're going to go buy some really good players, and this is a good front office. It would be the weakest roster to ever get to a Super Bowl. I mean, the fact that they're winning, it comes down to one player. Yeah. Well, let's just be honest. It comes down to one kid.
He's a little more than a kid now, but home teams, by the way, did you see that? 8-2 in the playoffs. The 2 road wins to win. Washington in Tampa, Washington against Detroit. Home teams are dominating.
The teams that are winning, no turnovers.
No turnovers as well, yes.
That has really been remarkable. You could always get away with one. Like turnovers, 1, you're done. You lose.